So I'm going to put this on. So I hope you get my reference here. Will you be my mentor? Anybody know what book this is from? Anybody have children or have been a child in America or anywhere else in the world? Right? Are you my mother, right? And you remember this? Like this poor bird walks around asking everybody, are you my mother? And, you know, whatever, eventually finds the answer. But the reason I titled this lecture that, will you be my mentor, is how many people here have ever been tasked with the idea of finding their own mentor or thinking about finding their own mentor or wondering what it is to find mentorship, right? So when they asked me to give this talk about, you know, how do you find a mentor? What does that mean? The reason they asked that is because I am somebody that's at this middle section of academic career, so I'm kind of famous, but I'm really in my own head. But what it really means is that I've done a pretty good job of finding mentorship in what I need, and now I serve as a mentor for a lot of people. For those of you, does anybody here know about Feminine? Okay, so what I've done, can you make me some water? That would be really helpful. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay. So Feminine is an open access resource for women in emergency medicine, but really it's about gender equity in emergency medicine. And one of the reasons we founded Feminine was actually to provide a way for, thank you, was for mentors and mentees to come together. So before Feminine existed, a lot of these organizations had tried to have formal mentorship programs where you could have a bunch of people volunteering to be a mentor and a bunch of people saying, I need a mentor, and then you would somehow pair them up in this ridiculously artificial matching program, kind of like before Tinder for anybody. You know, you'd want to create a program you could like swipe right or left to find your mentor. But ultimately, you know, we thought that's what Feminine would be, and it really wasn't, right? Feminine became this kind of historical memory for the work women had done solving their problems, and also started to solve the problems of gender equity, and became a really inclusive space. So back to mentorship. So the thing about mentorship is it is not an algorithm to be solved, right? And so I told Gannon that I would start out with a story about some mentorship that I'm seeking out right now. So the thing about mentorship is you never stop looking for mentors, right? And very quickly in your life, you'll realize that even as medical students, there will be college students. How many people have been asked by a family member or friend who wants to go to medical school about the path you've had to success? Raise your hand. So all of you have served as a mentor to somebody else. Now, how many of you initiated that relationship? How many of you had that relationship initiated to you? So you see that when you are the mentor, the initiation of the relationship generally comes by the person who needs the advice. Fair enough? Now, unfortunately for you, you're much more in the needing advice category than you are in the giving advice category, so it's still up to you to find the people that you need to be your mentor. Fine. So for me, this is where I am. So somewhere around a few months ago, after the world fell apart, or certainly my world is falling apart, I started realizing that I needed to have a larger impact in the world, or especially around gender and politics. And I reached out to a friend of mine, that's a loose interpretation, somebody that I knew through connections that had been very involved in the Obama White House. And I said to her, I have some questions about what it would be like for somebody like me, a professional with a skill set that is pretty well defined, to be involved in politics. Would you meet me for coffee? And to my surprise, she said yes. I literally had to say, which city will you be in? I will fly there to meet you. But she happened to come to my city, which is New York, and we met for coffee last week. And then we sat down, and I kind of spelled out what I wanted to know from her. And she was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Let's get to work. And we spent the next hour discussing what it was like to be a professional. She was a lawyer before she was in the White House. To be a professional that had a career, and how could I use the skill set that I've developed in gender equity in medicine, where the two biggest issues kind of right now are the intersection of gender equity and healthcare. You know, facing all Americans, right? They're huge. And so I really feel like I have something to add to that larger conversation. The reason I bring that up is because somebody like me, still looking for mentorship, maybe it's not in an academic medical center, but it still exists, right? So you guys are going to continue to hone the skill of finding the right mentors through your entire career. Is that fair? So you can't go up to a mentor and say, I need help. What do you need help with? I don't know, I just know I need help, right? That doesn't work, right? You have to know, really, who are you, right? Who do you want to be? Who do you want to grow up to be, right? What makes you tick? What makes you feel good? So for me, that was always about, I like to solve problems. There are a lot of problems to solve. I like to solve problems related to equity because I don't like to let injustice persist. Now, some of those equity issues affect people like me, that look like me, that have the same issues that I have, and some of the issues I address are for people that don't look like me and don't have the same issues that I address. But when I look for mentorship, I look to see people that have solved problems in an innovative way. Some of it's in an entrepreneurial way. I like to look to people that have solved problems in an economically viable way. So I am not somebody that gives it away for free in academic medicine, right? I don't do work that somebody won't either compensate me for or that I can't say is a hobby of mine, right? Something is either a job or a hobby, but you can't have a job that nobody pays you for. Fair enough? So for me, finding mentors that have figured out how to monetize but really kind of get paid for equity work as part of their job was really important. Fair? Okay. At the end of the day, and this is really supposed to be very short because what I really want to do is answer questions and kind of ask you guys what you've been thinking is you have to look for a mentor to help you figure out your path, but you have to give them options to help you. So when I sat down with this person that worked at the White House, my question was, what jobs are there for somebody like me in an administration, right? And she gave me a list of political appointed jobs that use the skill set that we've developed in medicine and in healthcare that I could potentially do. I had no idea there's a book that has those I had no idea. I would never know that. I don't have that skill set yet, right? She was excited because what she has is a skill set of experience that very few people can tap into, right? So for her, it's an opportunity because for a mentor, the opportunity to share their knowledge is wonderful if their knowledge is appropriate for you. The worst thing you can do is ask somebody for mentorship that literally has no experience in what you need, right? So going up to somebody that's famous, whether it's in medicine or not in medicine, and say, I really need help. So let's take a Mama Too. Does everyone know who he is? Or Scott Weingart. I'm trying to think of a famous person that you guys know. Anyone know who Scott Weingart is? Okay, Michelle Lynn, anyone? Raise your, I'm going to find, until I find a critical mass of people that know. Name somebody in famous in emergency medicine. Anand Swami Nathan, does anyone know who he is? Okay, do you know anybody in emergency medicine besides me? Okay, you know me, right? So somebody coming up to me and asking me about how do I do research on decreasing the admission rate for patients with diabetic neuropathy in the ER, right? Or I'm interested in ultrasound. Now, unless they're looking at the innovative ways to use ultrasound in a third world country and figuring out how to get, Siemens or Philips to pay for it, which is my skill set, right? Entrepreneurial innovation, the actual medicine of ultrasound has nothing to do with what I know, right? It's a waste of my time. It makes me look at that mentee and say, are you sure you know what you're asking for? Do you even know me? Right? So when you look for a mentor, you want to do it in a way that reflects that you've done the research, right? It's on you. A mentee-mentor relationship starts from the mentee. All the good ones do. But if you're the right kind of mentee, you've done your homework, you know who you are, you know what your ask is, you can basically find a mentor anywhere, even somebody who literally was pretty high up in the White House. I have no business asking this person for advice. But I went in with a very specific ask, knowing a lot about her, knowing a lot about what I needed from her, and she was the only person on the planet that could give me that advice. And that made sense. Fair enough? So now I'm going to open up the floor to you guys because I literally don't think I have any more questions. Thanks. Ask me questions about finding a mentor, who you want to be, what you want to do, when do you do it. Let's just make this next 10 minutes worth it. Or we can have more breakfast. I'm going to pick on somebody, because that's also what I do. You were nodding. What about you? Who's your mentor?
I have a mentor, but she does emergency medicine. Oh, my God.
Yeah, no, it's cool. You got a microphone now.
Yeah, so she used to be an emergency medicine physician, but she's not anymore. She's retired, but she works more with simulation and medical students, and that's kind of what I'm a little bit interested in, is mostly academics and also global health. But I met a couple people here that are interested in global health, so that was very helpful. But I mean, I guess she's my mentor.
So the other part about it, just to kind of give you like all of what you said as far as like all the things you're interested in, is you guys are very undefined, and that's cool. You're not supposed to be overly defined too early. So it may mean that you don't actually need a lot of mentorship right now. Like you could need systemic mentorship, right? So things like Feminem. So what we created is, you know, plenty of people use Feminem as kind of a global mentor, right? What does it mean to be a woman in emergency medicine? I want to be an ally in emergency medicine for women. How would I do that, right? So you can look at the website, you can look at academic life in emergency medicine and say, how would I create an academic career? Or you can look at MCRIT and say, maybe I want to go into critical care. So there are these institutional like spaces that can serve as like non-specific mentors to you and help you figure out what your real questions are. There's GEMA, the global, GEMA is the global emergency medicine group from SAEM. You know, there are a bunch of others. So if you guys are still figuring out where you are, you could go into those larger groups and read their articles, their blog posts, see who's a leader in the field, and not actually reach out to anyone yet, which is fine. Anyone else have a question or a mentor or, yeah, you're close to the microphone.
I was going to ask, what would you say logistically is the best way of approaching finding a mentor? Like, I know Twitter's an amazing resource. Would you do it over Twitter? Would you?
I do everything over Twitter, including talk to my husband who's sitting next to me in my room sometimes. So the answer, that was a joke. You guys are supposed to laugh. So the answer is that Twitter is an amazing thing. So I give a whole lecture on social media and emergency medicine, you know, how it's affected our knowledge and communities. You can get to anybody on Twitter. It's amazing. So if there's somebody who has a specific skill set that you really feel connected to, let's say that you've decided, what are you interested in? Ultrasound, okay. So Risa Lewis, do you know who she is? Okay, so Risa Lewis is the perfect, or I mean, you know, Matt Stone or whatever, Mike Stone or Matt Rogers or any of these people, whatever. Like, there's a bunch of people on Twitter who are ultrasound people. You could DM any of them and say, I'm a medical student, I'm interested in ultrasound and emergency medicine. I'm curious, you know, I'm thinking of working on a project related to blank. Do you know anybody doing that work? You know, or I saw that there is a really cool application on ultrasound, like there's this POCUS Atlas that Matt Racinti started, right? Do you know how, if anybody need any help working on that? I mean, when you're a medical student looking to connect with a new mentor, you have to offer to be a workforce. You're a giver, not a taker, right? You got to realize that? Because you're trying to ingratiate yourself in that relationship, and that person has a lot to do. Now, if you present yourself as somebody that is, you know, appropriately understands their space in the world and understands what they have to offer, you can get a lot out of that even just by being in their orbit, right? And then you can start figuring out who you are and what you want to do. What else? Yeah.
Do I need that? Can I speak up now? A couple of questions. First of all, you're talking about how to get mentorship. Mm-hmm. What do you recommend for once you meet someone and you're like, oh, I like this person? How do you develop and maintain that? Especially if you're not working on kind of a joint project. If it's just, I had a couple questions, you answered it, now I don't have any questions, but I probably will need to contact you in a year. So how do you maintain that relationship?
Okay, so first of all, so networking is critically important to all of our professional successes, right? So the person that I emailed about the White House, I met a year ago, right? I didn't have an ask a year ago when I met this person. I just knew that they were worth having in my world, right? That happens all the time. So one of the most important skill sets you can do to lay the framework for having mentorship and sponsorship and availability later in your career is to meet as many people as possible and just figure out how to maintain connection. So Twitter is a really great one, right? Once you follow somebody on Twitter and they follow you back, you then have an access immediately to connect with them when you need something, which is to DM them on Twitter, right? Same thing is true for emails. Like, you can cold email almost anybody through their work email, and as long as you provide context to how you met them. So, hi, I'm Dara, I'm a medical student. We met at SAEM in Vegas. I saw you at the craps table. You know, I remember you lost so much money, you know, whatever, or whatever it was, or you won a lot of money, whatever the number is. Like, you can refer to a social interaction and segue that into a professional question, right? People, finding a mentor, making connections, networking is a skill set that will serve you everywhere in your life, right? You need to have a mentor in renovating your house, or think about raising children, or even you know, growing in your community, right? Think about your house of worship, right? How many of you see mentorship in leaders in your church or in your synagogue and what that looks like for you over your life? There's all these places we've started out mentorship. Mentorship is not only for your professional development. And connecting with as many people as possible early in your career is by far the best way to have the right network of mentors later on. What else? Nothing else.
Can I just add real quick?
You can.
Sorry, I think to that point, I think there is also an opportunity or an appropriate point in a relationship where you literally put it out there on the table and you say, do you want to go steady, right? Like, do you want to be my mentor? And formalizing that relationship. And I think it should be explicit.
Has anyone ever asked you to be their mentor?
Yes.
Okay. And how did that feel?
It felt good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have had, I think one person has proposed to me that way, literally. And she's totally somebody that I invest in a lot, and I like, love her. That is a very specific and unique relationship. Insofar as if you ask somebody to be your mentor, not to be your mentor in this area, but to be your kind of writ large life mentor, it is a marriage. It is a relationship that you're investing in long term. It should only happen once or twice in any cycle of your career, because that is something that you're investing in as it's a deeper relationship than I need you to advise me on how to get good at ultrasound and projects getting, you know, whatever. You could have mentors in lots of different areas. And that's kind of what I recommend. I have a friend that calls it your personal board of directors. I think that you should have as broad a network as possible and reach out. But having one person who you trust implicitly with your career decisions, like I have found, and again, everybody has their own, that a trusted peer mentor, which we actually didn't talk about, is probably the most useful relationship in my life. So anyone know who Esther Chu is? You're like totally plugged in. I love that. I have to be honest. It makes me happy. You're on Twitter a lot, aren't you? Yeah, I can tell. Okay. So Esther Chu is, you know Esther, right? So Esther is more famous than me. And she's somebody who does a lot of gender equity work. She's like social media, like she's incredible. She's my best friend, but she's also my best peer mentor. And the relationship we have cultivated because she and I had very different skill sets around the same topic, and we kind of just started bouncing ideas off each other. And, you know, I'm thinking of doing this. Do you think it's a good idea? What do you think? And her skill set was much more in academics and in writing and in research, and mine was in kind of entrepreneurship and building movements and, you know, large-scale energy or whatever. And together we've created a large movement that's rooted in equity, but also has a research base and blah, blah, blah. So I would also look towards peer mentors as a really fundamental part. And you do that with your medical school class. You don't even realize it. You'll do it with your residency class. And keeping connected with one or two of those people is a really, really good idea. Any other? Yes? I mean, it will feel natural. Like it will be the kind of thing where somebody is so connected to you in your career, and you've emailed them or called them or updated them or whatever it is, and you can say, I want to make sure, like, I want to be able to ask you if I have any questions. Will you be my formal mentor, or can I consider you a mentor? Something, the wording will come out naturally. The more important thing is not the wording, but it's the genuineness of the relationship. Because again, that person is going to only mentor a handful of people, right, in the way that you're asking for. Because you can always casually email or call somebody, right? And I've done that a lot, where like I've been deciding on a new job or deciding on a, you know, project and saying, I'm not sure if this is right for me. I would love to get your opinion on that. That's mentorship, right? And you can do that with almost anybody. Yes?
So how do you find, you're talking about you can compliment with your act. How do you find that act? Like, what is your process?
What do you need?
So what is your process for kind of figuring out what your interests are and how that person can help you in getting that question?
That's kind of why I say that you should go to kind of these kind of like institutional mentorship opportunities first. Like, so for me, I mean, I couldn't find mentorship in what I wanted to do. It didn't really exist for a period of time because nobody was doing gender equity advocacy in a way that was non-traditional, right? But I would say that the most important thing is to keep, like, you have to figure out what you need. I mean, if you don't need anything, you don't need a mentor, right? So figure out the problem you're trying to solve. What is the door you're trying to enter? What is the advice you're trying to look for? The decision you're trying to make? When you hit that and you're like, I wonder what I should do with this information, or how should I make this decision, or how should I seek out this thing, that's when you look for the mentor. Or you look to the network of people you've connected with and say, do any of these people fit that bill? Right? Any other questions? Yeah. Right. So I don't do prescribed numbers like that. So I think that that's a pretty poor way to have a genuine relationship go forward. So like you can, let me back that. With an ask. You could email somebody who's your mentor or that you feel is providing mentorship to you on a regular basis with updates. But make sure that it's clear that you're not asking for anything. So, hey, what's your first name? Hey, Sarah. Okay. So, hey, it's Sarah. You know, I just want to let you know that, remember you told me to do that research project on global health or whatever. I just wanted to know it's totally underway and I'm presenting a poster at SAEM. Like, that's no need to respond, right? That check-in is awesome for me. Because as somebody that mentors a lot of people in small areas and a few people larger than that, I love to know what people are doing. I feel more connected. And then when SAM comes around, I'm on the Twitter feed anyway, and I see your poster because you tweet it, or I say to you, I might write you back like totally unsolicited and say, tag me when your poster is up. I'll retweet it. Now, I have a few Twitter followers, you know, enough to make it that people will see your poster. So that's a great way for me to amplify your efforts that requires no lift on my part, right? If we have that relationship, that's such an easy thing for me to do. That kind of goes back into a little more sponsorship than mentorship. Sponsorship has to do with me using my leverage and privilege to create opportunities for you, as opposed to mentorship, which is me using my experiences to give you feedback on what you should do with your own life. Sponsorship is more on me as a leader to give to you, whereas mentorship is more on you as a needer to ask of me. But either way, there's a lot of fusion in both, right? So if I've mentored you to do a research project or connected you with the right, I'm a big connector. I connect lots of people with other people. So if I've connected you with the team that did that research project, I feel invested in its success. I will easily offer to amplify that work, which then could get you in front of the program director that you want to do your residency at, who sees that tweet from me, who's now given my stamp of approval for your work. And now when you go and you interview there, they're like, oh, didn't I see you when you did that global health poster on Twitter? Wait, I don't remember how I saw it. You're like, oh, no, Dara Kass retweeted it for me because she was integral to me joining the team. Like, it's so natural, right? And I've done so little for you, but it's been a big impact on your life. Fair? Anything else? I don't know what time. I could do this forever, so. Any other questions? Are you guys all feel empowered to now be excellent mentees and find good mentors and have more coffee? All right, well, then I'm done. Right? Okay.